Welcome back everyone for another video. Today I want to go over my Veemon Armor deck list. I think this is a pretty strong, fun deck. It's not the most competitive deck, but it's good enough if you want to top locals or maybe even push yourself and get a top 16 at a regional. It's yet to be the meta menace that's going to be in next format, but it's still a very solid, very strong, mid-rangey, aggressive deck. Anyway, let's get right into the list. If you want to see the full list, I will post it at the end of the video. So, going right into the deck list, we're going to have 5 eggs. We're going to have 4 of the Wanyamon and the Bukamon. Bukamon's limited. It's a really good card. Sometimes it conflicts with having the Jamming Veemon and won't actually get its trigger, but other than that, it's pretty solid. And then Wanyamon is the best draw engine. We often want a Blue Tamer on our field. We are trying to cycle our Blue Tamers as quickly as possible just to get the advantage from them. Then we play 4 of the Ukamon. This card is obviously good in any deck that's pretty aggressive with rookies, but it has the added synergy in this deck of being free type, which means it procs our Davis, and it can be searched for by our Veemon. It's just a really good card, and on top of all the things that it does already, which is the hatching and the gaining memory. Excellent card. 4 of this Searcher Veemon. The Inheritable does not matter. It searches Davis Tamers and free Digimon, which is most of our deck, and best Tamer in our deck. 4 of the new promo movie Veemon. This card is pretty strong in the deck. It helps us reduce the cost, which is important when you run a bunch of Magnamons. Magnamons are more expensive than the other armors, so it helps us get those costs down a little bit. And then has a not once per turn draw effect, which can come up if we swing with our armor, it dies. We evolve into the armor that unsuspends. We can swing again and get another draw. Getting draw is very nice. Helps us be consistent with our deck, keep seeing most of our game plan. 3 of the Veemon that searches double colored Digimon. It is a little whiffy sometimes in this deck. It can miss on targets, but I just felt like the top 4 to see a 2-color blue is more consistent than the other Veemons that search free type because it helps us search our boss card, which is not searchable in this version of the deck. Maybe in future versions when we get the better Magnamon, it's going to be a lot better. Finally, we have 3 of the Jamming Veemon. This is just preference. You could play 4 of this. It's really good. Helps us get damage. We can swing for damage, draw from our Inheritables, and then also unsuspend with the Magnamon that unsuspends. But you know what this card does. Aggro, punch them in the face, get damage with little repercussion. Then we have the brand new 4 Magnamon. This is probably the reason this deck is even remotely competitive right now. This deck card is such a boost to the deck, as well as the Ukamon that we saw before. If you resolve the entirety of its security effect, you probably just get enough advantage to snowball the game from there. Not always, but it's a lot of advantage to de-digivolve something, and then digivolve for free, strip, and then possibly bounce something all in one action for free is really nice. That doesn't happen always. Sometimes they remove your Veemon before they even hit this in security, but overall it's still really solid. And then the Soul Strip and Bounce helps us get rid of a lot of small bodies. Gets rid of things when people slam their ace card. It's really good. It's really strong versus Diva because they are just level 5s and 6s, so you just proc ace for free. Proc overflow for free. It's really good. And also the strip is targeted, so sometimes you could get rid of really pesky Inheritables. Like the Numemon Inheritable lets them float. It just does so much utility-wise. It is really good for the deck. And it's also an armor card with Armor Purge. Obviously, you would rather see this in security, but it is just a good card overall. Next up, we have 4 of the Unsuspend Magnamon. This pretty straightforward. It unsuspends when Digivolves, and then gets arbitrarily large for how many armors we have. The DP boost does matter because it lets us trade into things which we normally couldn't trade into. And then because we're an armor deck, we get to keep our body and they don't. And then the boost effect also carries if we evolve into our future cards, which can happen pretty often. Finally, for our armors, we have 3 of this Magnamon. This Magnamon has pseudo armor purge. It instead plays Digimon by effect from our source or from our trash. It helps us repeat on play effects, which is really nice. But it is a little vulnerable to Levia shenanigans, so it's why we play less of it. But generally, if you see that you're playing against Levia, you just try to avoid doing that. Your play by effects in this deck are very optional. You don't have to do them, so you can kind of play around the Leviamon conditions. But it is the weaker than the other 2 Magnamons. But it's still pretty solid, and the altar to this card is super nice and way too expensive for my blood. So, finally, for level 4s, we have 1 Kumamon. Hybrid for game, pretty self-explanatory. And Source Strip was the best utility I could find out of the hybrids, especially since it synergizes with this Magnamon, as well as the Bukamon, as well as the next card, which is the 2 Zudomon. It just has the best synergy for that. Then we have 2 Zudomon for our ace targets. Our armors are very sticky, and this sometimes can finish off a card and bounce really annoying cards. It is also targeted Source Strip, so you can help remove annoying inheritables. Costing 4 is a blessing. Sometimes you just slam these for 4. They're just really good utility cards. You don't need to see a lot of them. You could add a third ace if you want. The other ace card that's in blue, the Wergurumon, is also good. Just good utility cards, though. Mostly there for utility. 3 of this Magnamon X. This card is pretty strong. Infinite redirects, but it's not that big, so a lot of the boss monsters can swing over it. But it is really, really annoying to get rid of sometimes, and it saves itself, and then you still get an armor below it. It is noticeably not good with Zudomon because it doesn't get its effects unless it has armor under it. But other than that, it's a really strong card. It's not nearly as strong as the boss monster in BT16 and will easily get replaced once that comes out. But for now, it's a good, solid card. It is noticeably not free, so it's hard to search, which is why we play the Search 2-color Veemon, which can also grab all the other armors. Finally, for Digimon, we have one Death X. This deck has a little bit of issue dealing with wide boards. It's very good at kind of like minimizing some boards, but you can't actually remove their boards that often unless you have something like Death X. So a good way to kind of close out a game by just wiping out a wide board. Going into options, we have 4 of the Mental Training. Max Consistency. You don't need to play this card in this deck. It's entirely necessary, but I'm all about max consistency. It hits most of our deck, and it reduces the armor cost of our Magnamons from 3 to 1, which, because they're so expensive, it helps to mitigate that cost to help actually push for damage or push for the plays that we need when we need to make them, as opposed to just evolving freely and not really getting anything out of it. So this deck is super consistent. We have 18 rookies plus 4 training. Plus we also run a Tamer that searches, so pretty consistent to see our pieces. So if you're having a deck that's nice and consistent, this is pretty strong at doing that. 2 Fire Rocket, help swing for game, get extra damage. It has the added benefit that there is actually a lot of incidental blockers right now, so the security effect actually comes up when it used to never come up. But now there's things like Fenrir that give itself blocker. Numemon has stacks that have blocker. What else? Greymon, they're actually gain blocker from their Tamer now. Just a lot of things incidentally get blocker when they used to never get blocker, or have only blocker on the opponent's turn. So now the Inheritable actually comes up and can remove things, but mostly play for the damage. But people don't play around the security effect, so it actually can ruin someone's day. 2 Heaven's Judgment, you could up this to 3. This card's really powerful. Very self-explanatory. Pay 7. Shoot a bunch of bullets at the board. 6,000 per color, and you can easily get a lot of colors in this deck. If you look around, there's white, there is blue, there is gold or yellow. There's also black because the new armor is black, so that you get 1, 2, 3, 4 colors up plus the 6,000 it initially starts with. So if you get everything lined up, which doesn't always happen, but if you get everything lined up, that's 5 colors of 6,000 DP each. So this card can just wipe out a lot of things. It's really powerful. One of the better board wipes in the deck, and would recommend playing it. It's also not searchable, so that is a consideration to up this card's number, but it can be clunky in the wrong matchup, so I just thought 2 was enough. Finally, for our Tamers, we play 1 of the Memory Setter Davis, because it's like an extra boost search in our deck, and it's generally a good card to set ourselves at 3, especially since all of our stuff costs 3. 4 of the new Promo Davis, which allows us mostly to play a Veemon for free and then gain a memory from our free traits. And this works with Ukamon, which is crazy because Ukamon is free. So, very good card. You could cut this because this is a lot of Tamers, but a lot of times the ideal opener in this deck, in my opinion, is to get a rookie in Raising and then play this card out to play another rookie from your hand for free, which is why we play 18 rookies. You don't need to do that, but I think it's super nice. And then 1 Louis. Louis is there to Louis for game. Just kind of like Hybrid. It helps us cycle sometimes with Ukamon, but mostly we're doing that as basically an extra Hybrid for game from a different angle. And that is the deck. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. give this deck a try. Get some practice before the Magnamon X Menace comes next format. And I hope you all have a good one. Peace out.